Welcome to New Season Academy for the stories you didn't learn in school. Would you believe that a founding father thought Americans were celebrating July 4th on the wrong day? And the surprising part is, he was right. Welcome to New Season Academy, where every day we uncover the fascinating stories behind the dates that shaped our world. If I asked anyone, when did America become independent? Almost everyone would say July 4th, 1776. But here's the interesting part. That's not exactly true. In fact, one of America's founding fathers spent the rest of his life convinced we were celebrating on the wrong day. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of America's first Independence Day and why one of the men who helped create the United States thought the holiday should have been celebrated on July 2nd instead of July 4th. To understand what happened, we need to travel back to the summer of 1776. The colonies had already been fighting Britain for more than a year. Think about that for a moment. Most people imagine that the Declaration of Independence started the Revolutionary War. Well, it didn't. The war had already begun. The battles of Lexington and Concord had happened in April of 1775. The famous Battle of Bunker Hill had already been fought. Men were already dying. Yet even then, many colonists still hoped that things could be worked out with Great Britain. Declaring independence was a huge step. This wasn't like changing jobs or moving to a new city. This was treason. If the colonies lost the war, the men signing their names to the independence could be arrested and even executed. That raises a question I always like to ask. Would you have signed? It's easy to say yes when you know how the story ends. It's much harder when the outcome is uncertain. In late June of 1776, delegates gathered in Philadelphia. The city was hot. There was no air conditioning. Windows were often closed because people feared spies. Imagine dozens of men wearing heavy wool clothing in a crowded room during a Philadelphia summer. That alone sounds miserable to me. Then on July 2nd, 1776, something remarkable happened. The Continental Congress voted for independence. Not on July 4th, July 2nd. That was the day the colonies officially decided to separate from Great Britain. And one delegate was absolutely convinced that Americans would celebrate July 2nd forever. His name was John Adams. Adams was so excited that he wrote a letter to his wife, Abigail. He predicted that future generations would celebrate the day with parades, bells, bonfires, and even fireworks. And here's my favorite part. He was completely right about those fireworks. He was just wrong about the date. Here's a little known fact. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson both died on July 4th, 1826. The same day, within hours of each other. And it wasn't just any July 4th. It was the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Can you imagine being alive at that moment? Two of the most important figures in American history passing away on the nation's birthday, exactly 50 years after independence. Many Americans at the time thought it was a sign of divine providence. If independence was approved on July 2nd, why do we celebrate on July 4th? Because July 4th is the date printed on the Declaration of Independence. After voting for independence, Congress spent 2 days debating and revising the wording of the document. The final version was approved on July 4th. That date appeared at the top. Over time, newspapers printed the declaration. People saw the date. Communities began celebrating it. And slowly, July 4th became America's birthday. Sometimes history works that way. The date attached to the document became more memorable than the date of the actual vote. Here's another fun fact that surprises people. Not everyone supported independence. In fact, historians estimate that roughly 1/3 of all colonists supported the revolution, while another third remained loyal to Britain, and the other third tried to stay out of the conflict altogether. Imagine living on a street where your neighbor supported independence, another neighbor supported the king, and everybody knew each other's opinions. The revolution wasn't just a war against Britain. For many families, it became a civil war between neighbors. Every July 4th, people talk about the Liberty Bell ringing to celebrate independence. But here's another interesting twist. Historians aren't actually sure it rang on July 4th, 1776. Some evidence suggests it may have rung days later when the Declaration was publicly read. The famous story sounds great. The evidence, not so much. And that's one of the reasons I love history. When historians investigate the past, they don't just repeat stories, they examine evidence. Sometimes the evidence confirms a story. Sometimes it challenges what we've always believed. At first, this might sound like a debate over dates. July 2nd or July 4th. Who cares? But the real reason is bigger than that. History is often more complicated than the version we learn in a textbook. The closer we look, the more interesting it becomes. The Declaration of Independence wasn't created in a single moment. It was debated, revised, argued over, and eventually approved by people who had no idea whether they would succeed. They were taking a tremendous risk, and now, nearly 250 years later, we are still talking about the choices they made. So the next time you see fireworks on the 4th of July, remember, America voted for independence on July 2nd. The Declaration was approved on July 4th. Many of the signatures came later, and one of the founding fathers spent the rest of his life thinking Americans were celebrating the wrong day. History is funny that way. The more you dig, the more surprises you find, and that's what makes it worth studying. Now, before you go, here's today's history question. If you had been living in 1776, do you think you would have supported independence from Britain, stayed loyal to the king, or tried to stay neutral? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, keep asking questions because history always has another story to tell.